Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all again. I'm here today to talk to you all a little bit about budgeting, which is by far the most important topic when it comes to being or becoming financially successful. So, hopefully, what I provide today will give you just a few tips on how to make budgeting easy, and hopefully, you can take something and apply it to your situation. So, as always, just a little bit about me. I am a financial educator with HJW and been doing financial education for a while in various forms and with various groups. Happy to be a part of HJW and empowering individuals and families and helping them to achieve financial success. So, um, as far as today's topic, budgeting, here's kind of sort of the game plan. I'm going to start out with talking about why budgeting is the foundation for money management. I know that in managing your finances, there are a number of different areas that you could focus on, but by far the most important area is budgeting. And then after I talk about the why, I want to talk about the how. So not only do I want to explain why budgeting is important, but I also want to show you how to do it. And there are many different ways to complete a budget. The most important thing is that you do it. As long as you're doing some form of budget, whatever fits you in your situation, then that alone will help you to achieve financial success. And then after that, I want to talk about a few next steps. So once you create a budget, set a few goals within your budget. There are a few things that you can do as sort of to act as sort of the next step in um, becoming better at budgeting or even setting different savings goals. We'll talk about that. And then something that I always talk about is finding an opportunity to teach someone else. So not only listening to this presentation, not only is that good for you, but it's also good to share it with someone else. That way, someone else can learn. And if you have family members that you can share this info with, it's always good to pass what you learn along. And that's how we all become better. So that's how we truly make a difference. So share what you learn. All right. So the question is, why should I budget? And people tossing around budgeting all the time about a budget is this, a budget is that. But I have a few reasons listed on the slide here on why budgeting is important and why you should do it. So the first one, it can change the course of your life. So there was a study conducted back in, I think it was 2019, where they looked at individuals who were stressed about their financial situation. And they found that over 70% of those individuals failed to create a budget. And something that anyone with any sort of financial concern should do is create a budget, because a budget is going to tell you a number of things about your current financial situation, and it will highlight if there's some sort of shortfall or if there's an area that needs attention. So it can change the course of your life if you actually do it. The second thing I have there is it can set you up for financial success. So when you talk about budgeting, if you go and you speak with a financial advisor, the first thing they're going to tell you to do is set up a budget. And that's going to sort of provide your direction. The next bullet I have there is you will accomplish more without having a financial burden. So essentially, budgeting it relieves stress, and it doesn't necessarily bring more money into your account, but what it does is the awareness of where you stand. That alone will change the level of stress associated with your finances. The next one there is create a healthy spending and savings habits if you budget. And then last but not least, it will help you to establish a good credit history, meaning having some sort of system with your money in place will allow you to ensure that your bills are paid on time, and it will help you to keep track. And then I say so much more. And as I mentioned at the beginning, budgeting is it's the foundation for money management. This is where everything starts. Or maybe I didn't mention that. I'm mentioning it now. It's the foundation for money management. It's where everything starts. So, with that in mind, I've got a quote. Oh, y'all know if you've watched a few of the presentations that I've done, I like to bring in quotes. So here's a quote from a minister: um, "A weak foundation will inevitably lead to a weak building, whereas a foundation that is deep and solid will ensure stability of a tall structure." So the question is, do you have a strong foundation for your life, faith, and family? And a part of your life is finances. So the question is, do you have a strong foundation for your finances? In other words, have you created a budget before? Because that acts as your foundation. That's something just think about. And I really want to push the point of having a strong foundation with your overall financial situation. I really want to push that. So when I want something to stick, I always bring in some sort of activity, quotes, ideas, or something else. So we're gonna do something called "Who Said It." Now, I'm a sports fan, so I have a few sports quotes, and take a second, guess who said whatever this quote is. But all of these hopefully relate to building a solid foundation and taking care of the fundamentals. And the fundamental of personal finance, or the fundamentals of personal finance, always center around budgeting. So here's the first one, and it's in purple and gold. So, well, why do you think I'm the best player in the world? Because I've never got bored with the basics. So if you take that quote and you listen to that, it's almost easy to figure out who said that. It was none other than Kobe Bean Bryant. And Kobe is basically saying that if you take care of the foundation or the fundamental skills or the basics, that's another way of saying it, then that's how you achieve success. So that's what Kobe is basically saying there. Now, I have another quote. This one says that the minute you get away from the fundamentals, whether it's proper technique, work ethic, or mental preparation, the bottom can fall out of your game, your schoolwork, your job, whatever you're doing. And I will add, even your finances. Now, this one's red and white, so you may guess who made this statement. It was none other than Michael Jeffrey Jordan. All right, another quote. I had to spend countless hours above and beyond the basic time to try and perfect the fundamentals. What does this mean? What this means is that it may not always be fun. It may not always be easy. It may not always be easy to take care of the fundamentals or to revisit your budget, but the impact that it can have, that's what I really want to highlight. So, and this quote was by Dr. J, Julius Irving. So I used a few sports analogies, a few sports quotes, brought those into the mix. But all of this goes to say that if you take care of the fundamentals or the basics when it comes to money management, then you're setting yourself up for success. That's all I'm really trying to push forward by utilizing these quotes and sharing these. And if I can get you to keep in the back of your mind that budgeting is the foundation for money management, then all of this will make sense and hopefully sink in and stick with you. And then the next time you sat down to analyze your finances, you may think, oh, got to start with a budget. So I wanted to bring in the life element. So as we talk about life, there's usually uncertainty that comes in our day-to-day situations, and whether it's with a job, monthly income, daily expenses, debts, retirement, cash savings. This was a slide that I included in the navigating financial situations presentation that I've done in the past. But what this basically says is that things are going to happen in life. Whether you get a job, you lose a job, you make money, or you make less money, or you make more money, or your expenses change from day to day, or your debt it goes up or goes down. Things are going to happen in life. And because things will happen, then there's a level of uncertainty. And the best way to address the uncertainty in life is to create a budget and try to build solid habits that will allow you to absorb the shock of life, or to have an emergency fund to take care of a bill or something that comes up. So, dealing with uncertainty, the best thing that you can do is create a budget. Now, as I get ready to talk more about the how, I'm still in the why phase. Why is this stuff important? How is this going to help you? There's a quote there, and I think this is actually something that I wrote or put down. But Financial success involves learning to maximize your situation, regardless of what that situation may be. And in order to maximize your situation, again, it starts with a budget. Now, I want to share this analogy that I use when talking about budgeting before I get into the how. But I always say that, well, I always use this analogy, and hopefully this works. You let me know. You utilize the comments if it doesn't, and I'll think of something else. But I compare your budget to, it's almost like if you're in a vehicle, you're trying to go somewhere or navigate, and it's late at night, and for some reason your headlights they're not working, and for some reason the street lights aren't working, but you're still trying to get to that destination, and you have no guidance, you can't see where you're going. Then there's a strong possibility that you are going to crash into something. You're going to hit something. And that's kind of how life is in your finances. If you're trying to navigate your different financial situations in life without a budget, there's a strong possibility you're going to hit something. You're going to run into something. So to to create a budget is like flicking on those headlights on a vehicle. That way you see where you're going, you have direction, and you can hopefully plan and um, act accordingly based upon what you see. And that's what the budget allows you to see. What exactly is happening with your finances. So the foundation there is budgeting, and think of it as your vehicle. It's almost like those headlights that you flick on, and this is what helps you to achieve financial success. And as we talk about budgeting, another way to look at it is it's like spending money wisely. Well, budgeting is basically having a plan for your money so that you spend money wisely. And now I want to break down what this means, or how this thought or these ideas play out in your daily life as it relates to budgeting. So I even have there. What does this even mean? So spending money wisely. So I've outlined the different steps, and there are what five steps to spending money wisely, or what spending money wisely actually entails. So number one is identifying your monthly income. Number two is identifying your expenses, your monthly expenses. And number three is adding in whether there's savings. So we want you to know how much money's coming in. We want you to know how much money's going out. We also want to know if you're accounting for savings. And then from there, you need to be able to anticipate fixed versus variable expenses. So this is where it gets into the weeds, it gets into the details. This is where you can either challenge yourself, decide where you're spending too much, cut back, and then separate the things that you have to pay versus things that, you know, are not required. And that's where you realize it. If there's any savings opportunities, then they will be there. And then last but not least, you revisit your budget worksheet, or you revisit your plan, and then you add in goals and spending caps. So one thing that I will talk about is converting a variable expense into a fixed expense, which means that you can anticipate how much you're going to spend, and that's an important part of taking control of your finances. So I'm going to talk about all of this. It'll make sense eventually. If it doesn't now, we're getting there. All right, so here's your pre-work. So this is almost like the practice before the game, and the pre-work is completing or filling out some sort of spending tracker. And you can do this on a budget worksheet. You can do this on a sheet of paper. You can do this wherever. But in order to understand where your money is going, you have to write it all out. There are apps, um, there's actually Excel sheets, there are Google sheets, there are a number of different things for you to use in order to accomplish this. But more so than anything, you have to write down, or you have to tabulate where the spending is going and where the income's coming from. And if you do this, it's kind of a pre I don't know a pre-game exercise. This will make your budgeting process much easier. So, first step, well, the pre work is to complete a spending tracker. And we have these worksheets. I can share a number of spending trackers with you. One of the easiest things that you can do is draw a line down a sheet of paper, down the center. make it almost like a T. At the top, you draw the line across, and on the left side, you write down what your income sources are, and on the right, you write down your expenses. And what you label that top portion of the right side your expenses, and then you can kind of fill in for that. And the goal behind that is for you to get an idea of what's coming in as far as income and where your money's going as far as expenses. And one thing that we always suggest is that if you can tabulate or keep track of your expenses, we say for a month, then that should give you a good idea of where you're spending your money. And then if you could categorize and add in how much is going towards various areas, then that gives you kind of the I don't know, the activity. It gives you a good idea of what your your personal activity is like. Now, this can also be used as your just general budget worksheet. Now I'll break it down. This will make sense. So in the overall budgeting process, after you've done your pre-work and after you've kind of listed out your income and expenses, you can revisit the worksheet that I just showed you, or you can have your own budget worksheet, whatever the case may be. But the first step is always identifying what income sources there are. It may come from your job, your earnings from your job or your career. There may be a part-time job that you work where you get additional earnings. You may get some sort of family contributions, and this could be a number of things. It could be child support. It could be some sort of investment where you receive some sort of dividend or something like that. It could be um, anything that you consistently have coming in. Just think of it that way, and additional income sources. So income, what's coming in, this is the money that will be used to cover your monthly expenses. Now, step two is where you identify your monthly expenses. Now, this could be housing, it could be utilities, it could be transportation, it could be food, it could be entertainment, it could be travel, it could be medical bills. Just in a nutshell, we want to know where your money is being spent. And if you can, the income's probably pretty easy, but the expenses, that's where it gets pretty time consuming for you to write down where you're spending money. And I also want you to think about these areas as um, kind of like a heading, a subheading in these categories. So you have transportation, but transportation could involve car insurance, it could be an auto payment, it could be gasoline, it could be maintenance. I mean, there are a number of other categories that can fall under each of these. So be sure to tabulate each of these areas. And there are some budget worksheets that list out each of these things line by line that you can utilize. But most of all, I want you to just try to fill in these areas so that you understand where your money is going. And when I talk about food, food, you can break that down into two different categories. It could be dining out versus groceries. And entertainment could be a number of things. It could be going to the movies. It could be um, your Netflix subscription. It could be your Hulu Plus subscription, whatever you have. But just think about all the different areas or all the different ways in which you spend money. And we want you to track those and tabulate and so that you can get a good idea of how much you're spending in these areas. And you can list it out. Now, the thing about budgeting is that your budget should be specific to you. So anytime there's a category or there's a line on some worksheet that you're utilizing for budgeting, you can always cross it out and write down what applies to you in your situation. So keep that in mind. Budget should be yours. In your financial situation and where you're spending money, it may not align with these generic budget worksheets that we have, but you can always mark something out. Just remember that. All right. So when it comes to tracking spending, I mentioned this earlier, but if you could set down, write down where you're spending your money, a week can open up your eyes, but typically we want at least 1 month. The longer, the better. And there are apps that you can use to track your spending over a period of time. There's Mint, there's NerdWallet, there's a memo you can add in your phone. You got the spiral notebook where you draw the line down the middle, like I mentioned earlier. You also have envelopes you can use for receipts. That's not as common, but The more that you write down when it comes to your budget, the more involved you become. So if you use an app, I always say it's not the same as you writing it down and realizing, wow, I spent 93 dollars at the gas station last month. What was I thinking? When you write it down, it becomes more, you become more involved and in tune with what's going on. So just throwing that out there. But that's a good way to track your spending. Now, from there, it's all about comparing what you have coming in to what you have going out. Your income versus your expenses. It's almost like a battle. And you always want your income to win because if your expenses wins the battle, that means you're spending more money than you have coming in, and that's a problem. That means that you're either having to borrow or you're going into debt some sort of way, and that's the less than ideal situation. But we want the income to win by far. And so ask yourself that question after you've completed your income sources, you've subtracted, you've added in all your expenses, and you've subtracted that amount from your income. The question is, do you have anything left? And I always ask, are you saving? So if you have money left over, um, have you included savings? Do you know how much money is going into your retirement account? It may be a situation where your retirement, the money going into your retirement account is actually already taken out before the money goes, before you wrote down how much money you had coming in, which is the best way to do it. That way, your retirement is accounted for. But after your money is deposited into your checking account, savings, whatever you're using, then you tabulate your expenses. Then there's a question is, well, the question is, do you have any money going into a savings account? Or do you have money being diverted to some sort of investment or brokerage account? And this is just something for you to think about. Um, you don't have to spend too much time on it now, but it should be a part of what you're doing. And some individuals will say, pay yourself first, put money into your retirement account, make that automatic. That way, you're not having to think about it. And this is probably the way most of you all have things set up. But if you don't, then it's a good way to ensure that your retirement and savings is accounted for. Because if you manually have to do it, you get a bit lazy and not put as much, and play around with it a bit. But all in all, be sure that you're saving some kind of way. Now, back to the expenses. And one thing I wanted to mention is that with your fixed versus your variable expenses, this is where you make the difference when it comes to your spending and your habits. So fixed expenses, and I want you to think about it this way: your fixed expenses are the same every month. It's not going to change. Meaning you're going to pay for housing. If you have tuition or something like that, you're going to pay for that. Car insurance is probably going to be the same each month. Cell phone bill is going to be about the same each month. And then your loan payments, if you have some sort of loan, think of those as being fixed expenses. Now, the variable expenses, this is where we usually get in trouble with our spending. So, this is where gas goes up and down beyond your control, hard to account for and hard to plan for if you have to drive for various reasons. But gas is a variable expense, meaning it's not the same, it's not consistent, and some of it's beyond our control. Transportation, and you may decide to take a weekend trip or something like that. That's what causes that gas bill to go up, or gasoline. Food is another variable expense. This is something that can fluctuate from month to month. The same for entertainment, the same for campus activities. Now, the goal for you is to find a way to set a cap on each of these areas so that those fixed expenses can become, so that those variable expenses can become fixed expenses. So, let me give you an example. So, say for gas, last month I may have spent $280. This month I may have spent $340. So if I set a cap on how much I want to spend on gas at say $330, this is how much I want to spend each month on gas. And I want to go above that. If I include that as a fixed expense, I can plan for that being the amount I'm going to spend. And as I spend throughout the month, once I start getting close to that $300 range, then I can start cutting back. Maybe, you know, take care of a couple of things with one trip as opposed to making multiple trips, just to make sure that I stay under my goal for spending on gasoline. Another example is for food. So say I go to the grocery store, the max amount I want to spend on groceries is $500 in a month. Now I know groceries are going up, so it can be hard to plan for, but this is why it's your budget and you have some level of flexibility. But once you identify a goal, meaning I don't want to spend over $500, then as I start getting closer to that $500, I may start thinking about different meals I can have that may be a little cheaper. And um, that's where you identify those savings opportunities. Same thing for entertainment. If I want my entertainment expenses or bills overall to be less than $150 each month, then I may pay for internet that I know I need. I may pay for one subscription. I may have YouTube subscription or something like that. YouTube TV subscription. I may cut out the Hulu Plus or the Disney Plus or whatever those things are and keep that spending below whatever cap I've set. So the idea here is to set caps on these variable expenses. That way you can plan for how much you're going to spend in each of these categories. Now, the other component or the other variable that's probably the most important is the discipline to stay within the cap that you set. So if I only want to spend $100 on dining out for the month of December, which may be hard to do during the holidays, if that's how much I want to spend, then I'll start saying no to opportunities to go and dine out. And again, this is where you make the difference. This is where you set down, you set the goals after you've already listed out all your expenses. You sat down, you set a cap. Once you identify it as a goal, then it's your job to be disciplined enough to stay within that range. And I promise you, if you work at it, it's much more achievable than what it seems like. So now revisiting the budgeted worksheet. Now that I've sat down, I've listed all my expenses out, I know how much I have coming as far as income. Now I want to revisit this budget worksheet and put in how much I'm spending. Well, I want to revisit and list all those fixed expenses because you know they're going to be the same each month. And then those spending caps that you set in those different categories, this is where they come into play when you plug them into this budget worksheet. And once you set those spending caps in, then at the end of the month, you've had time to see if you've met your goals in those different areas. Then you want to revisit and write down what actually happened. Now there are budget worksheets that will have the three different columns where you will have your planned how much you want to spend based upon your spending caps and everything, and then you're able to list out your actual how much did I actually spend, and then you can compare and see how far on or how far off you were as it relates to your goal. So I probably should have shared one of those budget worksheets that have the three columns where you can list those out, but um, for the sake of this example, just plug in what you set as far as your caps in those variable expense areas, your fixed expenses that are the same each month. Plug in that amount, and then this has officially become your budget worksheet. So I can send out these worksheets to you all to help, and then there's also the opportunity to meet with one of us, peer finance. I mean, with one of us from HJW, one of the financial counselors, where we can walk through this with you and kind of help you set those goals as far as spending in those different areas. So to summarize what I've talked about discovering where your money is really going. That's the goal behind budgeting, and that's the idea behind budgeting. And then converting as many expenses as possible into fixed expenses. So again, the variable expenses, that's what can get you in trouble. And if you set those up as a fixed expense, meaning you have a spending cap that you don't want to go above, if you spend below that cap, you're good. It's extra money that can go into a savings. But you don't want to go above that cap. Then you know exactly what to plan for each month. Number three, there, always look for alternative ways to save money. Saving money is definitely um, it's good, and it also allows you to increase your well, to build stronger habits that can allow you to grow and build and save more and more money. The fourth thing there is make a realistic budget so that your money stays on track, and that's the goal. So budgeting is kind of a three-part thing, a three-part activity, where at first you list everything out. Where's my money coming in? What do I have coming in? What do I have going out? The second part is identifying those fixed versus variable expenses, and then the third part is setting caps on those variable expenses to convert them into fixed expenses, listing those out in your final budget, and then seeing where you fall, seeing where things fall once you go through the process, and once you set those goals, seeing if you're able to stay below those. So hopefully that makes sense. And I wanted to add in a little bit of a challenge for you. And the challenge is for you to save $25. Um, However, whatever situation you're in, set some sort of goal, and then see how well or how close you come to reaching that goal. So whether it's $5, $10, 25, 100, whatever you can save, that's the goal, and add that in as a part of your budget when you complete it, and you list out your income, you list out your expenses, and then you account for savings, and then you see how much you have left over at the end of the month. But I always try to save. Saving a little bit is a good habit, and it gets you a step closer to saving more. So I always try to do that. I always provide additional readings. I've got a number of budget worksheets that I can share. Miss Joyce, I'll send those over to Miss Joyce to send out if you have questions about different budget worksheets. There are also different podcasts out there you can listen to learn about just money in different areas. I always recommend Earn Your Leisure, great podcast that kind of breaks down different aspects of finance that typically wouldn't think about. There's also a book called Your Money, Your Life, Your Money or Your Life that's out there. And then something else that I mentioned earlier was the discipline that it takes to create a budget, stick to it, and challenge yourself. That's ultimately how you achieve success, financial success. Now, I know I've talked a lot, but I did want to also plug our next upcoming seminar. It may be a little while before our next seminar, but we are currently providing financial tips throughout the month as it gets closer to the holidays. There's also a raffle for a $100 gift card or gift certificate for you taking part in sharing posts as far as tips that you can provide to others as it relates to finances. And also be sure to visit our webpage and check out what we have going. And that is actually all that I have. So I will turn it back over to Miss Joyce and we'll wrap things up.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Rogers. As always, great content, great information, especially this time of year, talking about budgeting. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that word budgeting, money management right now, but it is very important for us to stay on track during the holiday season. So great information. One of the things that I actually love that you shared was taking as many of those variable expenses and turning them into fixed expenses. I tell you, those variable categories are the budget busters. I mean, they will get us every time. So that's very important. I always say, manage your money and don't allow your money to manage you. Money management, it can be challenging. You know, we'll be very honest about it, but taking the steps and doing the work will definitely put you in a better situation. And I know a lot of people say, I've been taking care of my finances for 25 plus years, but there's a difference in taking care of your finance and managing it. Are you seeing the results that you want? Sometimes you're making these choices and it's like Groundhog Day. Every day, every year, you're in the same situation and you can't quite get over the hump. And again, like Dr. Rogers said, it's from doing the work, sitting down, looking at your expenses, looking at those categories and setting those caps. That is very important. So as always, the content was great. I could go on, but he's already done an amazing job. So there is no need for me to add anything else. We do want you all, though, to put your comments, questions in the box. If you have any questions that we can answer, we're always glad to do so. As Dr. Rogers sends the spreadsheets and the pages that he shared, I will upload them to our website on hjwfinancial.org. So you'll have access to that information. And as always, you can reach out to us by emailing us at hjwfinancial@bellsouth.net. And we can correspond with you that way. Or you can reach out through us through our Facebook page, which is HJW Financial on Facebook. We do have a page. We want you to go out. We save all this content all of our classes are saved to our Facebook page, so you can revisit them at your leisure and get the information that you need. Also, Tap In Tuesdays, as Dr. Rogers said, now through December 16th, we want you to add your tips in there. We're going to be sharing tips with you as a financial team every Tuesday. We'll have some sort of post or information with one of our tips, but also we want you to add your content. We're doing a giveaway, you all, $100 gift card. December 16th, we will list the recipients of who had the best tip that they offered. So please add those tips in. We want to see your tips. We are a community here to help each other. And that's what it's all about. As we learn and grow, we can do it together and we can all see each other reach the goals that we want to achieve. All right, so that's enough said. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you again, Dr. Rogers. You are amazing. And we will see you as far as our class scheduling. We will see you in the new year with our next class offering. But again, make sure you tap into those Tuesdays, okay? All right, we'll say bye-bye for now. Take care, everyone. Thank you.